What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Free Fire. Free Fire is an action comedy film that was co-written and directed by Ben Wheatley and primarily accounts a gun deal between two gangs in a deserted warehouse in Boston 1978. These gangs meet up in this deserted warehouse late one night, and eventually after some serious disagreement the deal goes south and things start escalating in an extremely violent and comedic fashion, and the rest of the film is spent watching the gangs battle one another in this abandoned warehouse while each side attempts to walk away with both the guns and the cash. Okay, so this was a very interesting experience for me because basically the entire film is confined to one small space, the warehouse, and everything that happens to the characters happens in that space. There's not a lot of character development, there's not a lot of deep storytelling here, it's just silly anarchy most of the time. And this didn't seem like a film that I would normally be into because I felt the story was going to be kept so minimal that the characters would lack any significant development, which I was right about, but I still enjoyed it because it's fun, action-packed, funny, and has lively and energetic characters. I think part of the film's charm is that you know very little about these characters, but you'll still find yourself rooting for certain ones over others based not just on the character's personality, but the actor who's in the role, and that's a very unique approach that I've personally never seen anything like before. And really, like I said, this entire experience was very unique for me because I don't think I've ever seen an action story that is so contained to one specific setting, with characters that get minimal backstories, fighting it out basically battle royale style while constantly cracking jokes. I mean, if you can name another film like it, be my guest, but I've personally never seen anything like this. Part of what makes this film enjoyable is the literally non-stop action. It's not like John Wick good or anything, it's much more over the top and silly, but it's just pure anarchy, and while it's still over the top, it does have an enhanced sense of realism to it at the same time, because characters are just getting shot left and right whenever they duck out from cover, and it's grounded yet at the same time over the top because the characters get shot and are injured and stay injured, and they don't just miraculously recover and go on fighting as if nothing happened. I also think the simplistic story is elevated by the acting performances. Each of these actors really brought a ton of personality to their individual characters, and this includes Brie Larson as Justine, Cillian Murphy as Chris, Armie Hammer as Ord, and Sharlto Copley as Vernon, who was my favorite character in this movie. And like I said, you'll find yourself rooting for certain characters over others because of the bits of personality that they show you over the course of the film. Depending upon your taste, you may love one and hate another. It's one of those kinds of movies where you can talk with your friends and say, which character did you like best? I like so-and-so, and that's part of the fun because this film never takes itself too seriously. It knows what it is, and it's a silly, violent, and fun story designed to simply entertain. That's it. It doesn't try to sell you some deeply intellectual story, it's just a pure, low-budget, retro, simplified popcorn flick. But with that said, there are some flaws with this movie that are quite noticeable. It's certainly not a great film, and while it's unique, it's not always captivating. There are certain points where you'll feel like the confined story is being stretched out as far as it can possibly go. There's a lot of repetition present where the characters just take cover, shoot and miss at each other, try to move around the warehouse, shoot and miss at each other, exchange banter, rinse and repeat. And while that's most of the movie, after a while it does get a little tiresome. Also, the story often loses some of its muster with how inaccurate these characters are with their weapons. I mean, they couldn't possibly miss their target anymore if they tried. I'm guessing this is part of the tongue-in-cheek, almost satire style of the film, but this bothered me because it often gets too ridiculous, just too silly for its own good, basically. But I did feel like as a whole, the dialogue is very nicely written. There's a lot of cleverly written jokes that will give you some nice chuckles, but there's plenty of others that will likely do absolutely nothing for you. There's plenty of attempts at humor and most of them land, but sometimes there's just nothing there and the dialogue feels especially heavy-handed. I think this isn't by any means a hilarious film, but it has its funny moments mixed in with the attempts at humor that just don't work. I kind of touched on this before, but I think the limitations of the story will likely leave some moviegoers dissatisfied with their overall experience. I say this because, like I previously mentioned, there's very little substance to this story. It's intentionally simplistic so the action and comedy can shine through, but I don't think this movie has much rewatchability because of those self-imposed narrative limitations. This is the kind of film where you look up a clip from it on YouTube after the Blu-ray is released and you think to yourself, oh yeah, that scene was pretty cool, I remember that, and that's the end of it. It's not such a great experience that you'll be blown away or anything. But overall, Free Fire is a simple, enjoyable experience, but it's nothing spectacular. I thought it had some really fun and humorous action scenes, some really strong acting and characters, and some cleverly written dialogue. I also felt the limitations of the story often felt too restrictive. There's a lot of repetition that grows tiresome, and there's plenty of failed attempts at humor. I'm gonna give Free Fire a 7 out of 10, and honestly, this is a tough one. I'm gonna recommend you pass on this one in theaters. It's fun and entertaining, but this is honestly one of those films you can grab from a Redbox a few months from now. So did you guys see Free Fire yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite action comedy film ever. It's a broad genre, but I think either way, that should be a fun discussion. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.